Well, morning everyone, great to have you here. Can I just get a show of hands? How many people are here for the first time at one of our breakfasts? Oh, terrific, that's great, thank you. How many people still think daylight saving is a good idea when you've got to get up early for a breakfast? How many people think it's way too early to put your hand in the air? All right, well it might be early, but when we receive a challenge like we've just received from Michael, it's really worthwhile being here, isn't it? Wasn't that incredibly helpful? Great perspective to work through. Let me tell you about one other early morning. The sun was just clearing the horizon on a fine summer morning in January 1930 when the steamship Niagara appeared off the heads of Sydney. One passenger later described it as one of the finest sights a world traveller could ever see. That young man, who at 26 was a similar age to many in this room, or similar age to what many would like to be in this room, that young man was Howard Guinness. He'd completed studying medicine, but never practiced, instead giving himself to the work of travelling to reach students with the gospel of Jesus Christ. After establishing university groups in the UK and Canada, he came to Australia. Here he was struck by the fact that many of the independent schools, while many of the independent schools had a church background, very few were actually presenting the gospel or discipling people. He came to the conclusion an effective Christian ministry to uni students in Australia had to start with schools. He wrote, "School was a place in which to confront students with the living Christ before their attitudes hardened and spiritual truths were rejected." And here, today, is the result. Crusaders was established because of that. Because of this action by a 26-year-old in 1930, not only were children reached with the gospel, but Australian society was impacted as those children came back to their families and talked to their other students and went on to university, went on to other workplaces. Crusaders continues to have this impact today. As the AFES regional representative commented to me, there's no doubt that the relative strength of the Christian work in the universities in Sydney is linked to the work of Crusaders with school students. Given these links, it's incredibly fitting to have a speaker like Michael join us today, doesn't it, as Vice-Chancellor? Michael, we're so thankful for the work that you do and for the things that you shared with us this morning. Thank you for that challenge. Today, in the 21st century, where secular humanists are allowed to speak loudly, but those with faith are urged to be tolerant, it remains vitally important that kids are reached with the gospel. That's why we need to visit schools, to connect in conversations, to present talks, and to run camps where Christian communities can be experienced, trust can grow, and the gospel is shared. That's what Crusaders does. This is a rescue mission, and we don't want anyone to be left behind. Donations made at this breakfast and at other functions have allowed Crusaders to have an amazing impact, an impact which can only be attributed to the powerful work of God's Spirit. Back in 2007, we had our first ever breakfast right here at the QVB. Well, what effect did that have? Well, at the time, we were reaching about 25,000 kids a year in schools. Today, that number is over 95,000. It's terrific, isn't it? Supporters like you have resourced ministry growth. So far this year, our staff have made a whopping 640 different visits to schools in the New South Wales and the ACT. Last year, 4 new crew groups were established in schools. Numbers attending holiday camps have almost doubled since 2007, and this year, for the first time, we've run over 100 summit school camps. Our crew camp season, just 5 weeks away, is shaping up as one of the biggest summers ever. After last summer, we received this message from a boy named Jesse. Let me read you what he wrote. "A mate of mine just got back from your wakeboarding camp and tells me he's become a Christian through it. My friend has been an atheist at a Christian school and has never changed or even talked about it much as long as I've known him. So this change is exceptional. I've been praying for him for years and I'm so thankful God used you guys to change him. Thank you so much." I'm convinced that it is God who has given these opportunities to Crusaders to share the message of life. It is God who enables people to partner together one person praying in one place, another person being reached in another. My great desire for Crusaders is that we'd be obedient to God and humbly seek to honour him. Let's be clear about this. God has commanded us to be involved in pointing people to him. If we're not doing this, then we're being disobedient. So that's why I'm so thankful for your generosity and your prayers in supporting this ministry. Kids' church attendance may be declining, but the number of kids being reached through Crusaders is climbing. We don't believe in standing still, and so today we want to set before you a bold plan to take ministry to the next level. We're seeking to raise $50,000 here this morning to help fund new initiatives. I'm going to ask each of you shortly to support in a significant way, because it's abundantly clear that through God's might and mercy, thousands of kids' lives are being transformed. And we need your help to resource it. Earlier this year, one of our staff was visiting a crew group at a boys' school to present an evangelistic talk. 44 boys from years 7 to 10 were there. 35 minutes later, as lunchtime finished, 2 boys had prayed to become Christians, 6 others indicated that they wanted to, 13 others said that they were Christians but hadn't been living that way and today wanted to recommit themselves. God's word changes lives. Or consider this email from a church youth leader. I've had the pleasure of encouraging and getting to know 2 Shore boys and 1 Scots boy who attended your Crusader study camp and are now coming along to youth group and church. All 3 of them found the camp absolutely instrumental in seeing who Jesus really is and beginning their walks with him. All 3 are battling with the reactions of their families and niggling doubts, but they are so keen to learn and even sacrifice for Christ. I want to thank you guys for the work you did. God's word changes lives. Not long ago, my wife Margaret and I attended the 21st of a young man. Frankly, we weren't sure why we were invited. I suggested to Margaret it was because of my legendary dance routine. She suggested I was very wrong. We weren't sure why we were there until he spoke to me later in the evening. You just had to be here, he said. If it hadn't been for Crusaders, I don't think I would have survived high school. God's word changes lives. Our desire is to see kids planted into healthy churches and youth groups and growing there as disciples. But the reality is that changes in family structures and increasing time pressures make it unlikely that kids will attend churches regularly, and churches are struggling to find ways to connect. That's where Crusaders makes a massive difference, having strong connections with schools, where the kids are at, and increasing numbers on camps and often resulting in waiting lists. You and I both know what the statistics confirm. Around 80% of adult Christians come to faith before the age of 18. Ministry to children and youth is strategic and needs to be well resourced. I could keep telling you about this, but it's best if you could see it for yourself. So let's have a look at the screens. We're going to see how God is using the network of Crusaders ministry to transform lives.